2 out of 10 sucks ass. Now, despite my 2 out of 10 review, there is one thing that I really liked about Joker Fall Out Boy's best album. If you liked the first movie, and not just liked it, but loved it and idolized Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, this movie thinks you are the worst guy ever made. This movie hates you. This movie thinks you're a pathetic loser who has main character syndrome and no grasp on reality. This movie spits on you in every conceivable way if you are stupid enough to idolize the Joker in your real life. I thought that aspect was very interesting. However, just like the first movie, Todd Phillips does not have the facilities to really bring that to its full potential.
The first movie
crumbles when you try and analyze how it examines social safety nets and how they fail to catch someone like Arthur Fleck, who would be mentally spiraling and inspired to act out in the way he does. This movie thinks that simply pointing out that Joker's followers are morons is enough. And it isn't. Yeah, Arthur Fleck and his followers are fucking stupid. Anything else? No! Now, to be clear, I'm not someone who considers themselves a fan of the first Joker movie. I initially liked it when it came out, but upon rewatch, I kind of found it to lack a lot of necessary directorial vision. It kind of felt like Todd Phillips was coasting on the pretty good score and some excellent acting for this movie. And from what I remember, the production on that movie was kind of weird, with a lot of what I considered to be the best scenes in that movie, like Joker crawling into the refrigerator. That was apparently Joaquin Phoenix's idea and not even Todd Phillips's. So really can't even give this guy that much credit. I also found the movie's attempt to criticize the Joker and his actions to be woefully inadequate, ultimately unable to help itself from glorifying the Joker's actions and making him look cool, which kind of goes against the whole point of this kind of movie. Overall, like, it's not a complete waste of time. It's like a 5 out of 10 from me, but it's at least way better than Joker Folie à Deux. This movie's biggest sin is that it's fucking boring. Too much time is spent in this drab-ass courtroom waxing on about how the Joker is a bad guy, and then Arthur has a cry about it, and it all feels completely useless because we know he's a bad guy. We saw the first movie. It would be one thing if they were like, let's run down all the shit that he did in this first movie and then we'll like come to a verdict about it. But a lot of it is just like, man, the Joker really is a bad guy, huh? And it's like, I know. I have 2 working brain cells, buddy. I could figure that out on my own by watching the first movie. And it's made even weirder by the element where Arthur has just a bunch of people who are like down for him. Like, they're ready to die for this guy. And, like, it makes the world seem like an insane, like, La La Land where everybody is in love with and wants to fuck a murderer, which, like, those people definitely do exist, yeah, but it's not everybody. Like, this movie makes it out to be like every single person on Earth just loves Arthur Fleck and thinks this guy is awesome. Except the only people that don't are the prison guards and police, who were made out to not like anyway. So, like, what am I supposed to think then, man? Whether or not you're supposed to like the Joker according to the movie kind of flip-flops from scene to scene, and it's not done that well at all. Todd Phillips, once again, can't help himself from glorifying the Joker's actions. So it's no wonder that people who don't know how to watch a movie right and have no media literacy looked at this guy and was like, this guy's pretty PogChamp. Now, when I heard that this was going to be a jukebox musical, despite the marketing trying to make me believe that it wasn't, I honestly got a little bit excited. I thought that it was just like batshit enough of a concept to really work. I should have remembered that Todd Phillips would still be directing it, so that means that the implementation of these musical numbers would be just as clumsy as the rest of the movie. You cannot convince me that all of these musical numbers were necessary. Maybe 1 or 2 at most, but it gets to a point where it's just a barrage of Sinatra-era Rat Pack vocal jazz about the same, like, 3 topics for the whole movie, and they happen, like, every 10 minutes. It gets exhausting because they're just hammering in these points that we already know from a previous musical number. Like, I get it, you know, I used to be in musicals, like, I get it. Musical numbers can forward the plot, yeah, but a lot of times they're emotional expressions of the characters. But that doesn't really work here because we've already gotten these emotional expressions. Like, oh, whoop-de-doo, another song where Arthur is sad, or fucking another song where the Joker's like, oh, I'm a fucking epic, or another song where Joker and Harley are falling in love. Like, I get it. All right, man, I get it. You don't have to keep telling me this. I'm watching the movie with you. I get it. You don't have to keep hammering it into my head every 10 minutes. Another thing that I really should have recognized when this was announced as a musical was that this was Todd Phillips moving away from copying Scorsese. I think that should have been the biggest red flag, because a lot of the first movie's good stuff was just cribbed from Scorsese anyway. And if you love the first Joker movie and you are thinking that what I'm saying is like completely preposterous, go watch Taxi Driver. Go watch King of Comedy. Especially go watch King of Comedy. You'll find that Joker is just King of Comedy, but worse. Like, that's all it is. Phillips isn't copying anybody anymore with this movie, so he doesn't know what to do when making a serious movie. I haven't seen The Hangover. I've heard it's great, but it's a different kind of movie. You know, sometimes you're just not equipped to do a serious thing, and that's fine. But stop doing it. The movie is shot pretty well. I'd actually say it's shot better than the first movie because there's a lot more going on from frame to frame. It's not like it's the same kind of close-up shot, shaky cam kind of thing anymore. They actually try some new stuff with it this time around, so, you know, I appreciate that. The score is pretty good. The musical numbers themselves, while they're pretty boring, the music itself isn't terrible to listen to, and I can't really complain about any of the performances, but this is just a slog to get through. This movie just swings its dick around, acting like it's got the gravity of the sun, when it can barely even pull my attention into its orbit. I laughed a few times, because, I mean, you know, it's the Joker. He's supposed to be funny. If you don't think he's supposed to be funny, you're fucking stupid. I laughed a few times, but only one of those times was at the movie, like with it. Like the movie trying to get me to laugh. The other times were after the third musical number. Every single time there was another one, without fail, somebody walked out of the theater and didn't come back. At least one person. And that is not only an impressive hit rate, but really fucking funny. This movie's other biggest problem is that it is essentially only shitting on people who idolize the Joker from the first movie. And like, again, that is an interesting concept. I like that. I kind of like the idea of distancing yourself from this unintended, toxic fan base that you've made for yourself. However, what annoys me about it is that it is entirely self-inflicted. Todd did this to himself. The rapturous following Arthur got in the real world after the first movie came out is Todd's fault. He was not good enough as a director, nor did he have the self-restraint to not make the Joker look cool. And that is a problem. That's why the first movie fails so bad. But now he's upset about it and is gonna jack off in front of us for 2 hours, which, like, listen, man, I can get down with a self-indulgent suck fest. I mean, if you check my Letterboxd, I just gave rapturous praise to Megalopolis for that same thing. That movie, but like, at least when I was being preached at by Coppola and like with this incomprehensible frame after incomprehensible frame and scene after scene of just weird bullshit, it was fun. I liked looking at it sometimes, and even if I didn't like looking at it, there was usually something going on that I could latch onto and be like, that's really funny that they're doing that right now. And some of it was intentional, you know? I think people don't give that movie enough credit. I think some people are like, oh, Coppola's off the bean for sure. Which, like, he kind of is in that movie, but whatever. Anyway, different movie. This is not that. This is not fun. This is essentially complaining for 2 hours about a skill issue. And that is not my fault. And I shouldn't be subject to that kind of whining. I have a similar amount of respect for this movie that I do for Rise of Skywalker. Which, if you know anything about my movie opinions, you know that I think that movie is dog shit dookie ass. The reason why I feel like these two movies are similar is because they're also kind of opposite, where Rise of Skywalker is a reactionary dumpster fire in response to the negative, well, polarizing, I guess, reception that The Last Jedi got, and they were basically apologizing for that movie's existence the entire time, which made for a really bad movie. Joker 2 is the same, except where Rise of Skywalker was interfered with by the studio, Todd Phillips could have done whatever he wanted. But Todd Phillips was too caught up in the fact that he wasn't good enough to keep the weirdos away. So even though there was basically zero studio interference, Todd Phillips, when given the blank check to do whatever he wanted with Joker 2, decided to complain for 2 hours. And it's exhausting to watch. The first movie is not Nightcrawler, it's not King of Comedy, it's not Taxi Driver, it's not any of those movies with reprehensible but sympathetic lead characters. It has its subsects of fans that don't really get that these guys aren't to be modeled after, but those guys are generally understood to be weirdos because those movies are good enough at distancing the main character's actions from an actual guide on what to do when times get tough. But Joker did not have the finesse to pull that off, and Todd Phillips wants it to be our problem. And even if it wasn't his fault, and even if he did the first movie right, this would still suck ass because all this movie has is hatred for a hypothetical viewer. Regardless of where you land on the liking Joker spectrum, I can't imagine that's a fun watch. Just the same message of, I hate this guy that likes the first movie. I hate this guy that likes the first movie. I hate this guy that likes the first movie. Having that just relentlessly pummeled into your head for 2 fucking hours is not fun for anybody. Even if you agree. I agree with you, Todd. I don't think that those guys who idolize the Joker are very smart either, but that doesn't mean it's a good movie. If you're gonna beat the same message into my head for a feature-length film runtime, at least give me something to latch onto, something to look at, a fun character to watch, a sequence. Blow something up. Blow 2 things up. Blow 3 things up. I don't care, man. Just something other than this boring-ass courtroom. Listen, this movie could have been a tweet, and I would have got the same experience. Because it's just so, it's that one note with its messaging. It's agonizing. Anything interesting that this movie has going on is either not done well or not done at all. The ending, which I'm not going to get into quite yet, but I will later, could have been cool. But it's ruined by worthless key jangling and just, remember this thing that you like? Ooh, remember? And it sucks. It sucks. I hated it. It's annoying and self-indulgent in a completely obnoxious way. And I don't recommend this at all. 2 out of 10. We're going to get into spoilers now and some potentially triggering topics. So a content warning for topics of rape and sexual assault. With that out of the way, spoiler time. There are 2 main points that I want to get to. Before I get to those, I have like one small thing that I want to talk about. Part of the reason that Joker has a huge fan base in this movie, at least part of the reason that they give, is that there was a mini-series adapted from Joker's like story. That mini-series is not implied to have had any input from Arthur. It's just this other thing that exists because, you know, commentary on true crime documentaries or whatever. Like the rest of the movie, it is not explored enough to be satisfactory or anything, but it's a minor plot point, so I don't really care that it's not explored to the fullest. However, it's kind of implied that they show the staircase scene in that documentary. Now, here's a confusing thing about that. Who was there to see Joker do that? It's not implied at any point in the last movie that anybody knew he did that Joker stare dance, that iconic Joker stare dance that everybody was like freaking out about. Fucking made those people's lives who live by that staircase complete hell for a minute because they were just taking pictures. Oh, Joker stairs. Oh. And like, I get that it has real world significance because it was like a well-done sequence or whatever with a pretty bad needle drop. But in universe, nobody knows that happened. And especially if the series doesn't have any input from Arthur, how do they know that happened? They make a pretty big deal about it. Harley at one point is like, I live by those stairs or whatever. And it's like, hello? The stairs? The stairs where Joker did his iconic Joker dance that nobody knows happened? Anyway, it's not really a big deal. It's just something I wanted to get out of the way because it kind of annoyed me. The main 2 things I want to talk about are the ending and this movie's relationship to sex. Now, like I mentioned before, the ending is cool in concept, but completely beefed in execution. And here's what happened. Arthur is disillusioned with the idea of becoming the Joker or being the Joker in general. And we'll get to why later. But that results in him being stabbed to death in prison by another inmate who like idolized the Joker or whatever. In concept, fine. You know, you want to whip up a frenzy and like get all these crazy people on your side and then be like, actually, never mind. You're probably going to face some pushback for that. And by some pushback, I mean a knife being pushed into your chest repeatedly. However, where it gets bad is when they imply that the guy who stabbed him is Heath Ledger's Joker. Now, I want you all to say it with me. What the fuck? So there was already some timeline complaints with the first movie. Joker meets Bruce Wayne in the first movie. He like freaks him out and Alfred is like, get the fuck away from here, idiot. Or it was Mr. Wayne, I don't remember. But regardless, Joker meets Bruce in the first movie and Bruce is a little baby boy. He's a 10, 11 max. And that introduced some problems for some people. I didn't really care, but like the problems raised were like, well, if the Joker is like in his 40s at this point and Bruce is a little baby boy, the Joker's gonna be like 70 when Batman turns up. So how's that gonna work? In theory, this would solve that because Joker is dead now. And I guess there's going to be another Joker later on for this hypothetical universe that's not getting any more movies. But then they go and imply that this guy is Heath Ledger's Joker by right after he stabs Arthur, he carves the Glasgow smile into his face. And like he does it off screen and like you can't really see that's what he's doing, but you know that's what he's doing. Excuse me, I had a shit ton of pasta before recording. I feel terrible. But like you know that's what he's doing. And you could just say, oh, well, you know, that's like, that could be anybody, you know. Who else do you know, like, just carves a Glasgow smile into their face? Fucking my buddy Jimmy does that or whatever. But it gets a little more interesting when The Hollywood Reporter wrote an article with some insider information where somebody claimed that that was supposed to happen in the first movie, not the Joker getting stabbed, but like, Joker at the end of the first movie was supposed to carve his face in front of all of his supporters. It didn't happen because Christopher Nolan was like, no, don't do that. Heath Ledger Joker is the only one who does that. Regardless of if you think that that's like a restrictive policy on Christopher Nolan's part, or if you think like that's lame of him or whatever, you have to admit that going ahead and doing it in the second movie after Christopher Nolan has left WB and can't interfere with that anymore seems a little intentional, doesn't it? Even on top of that, even if this wasn't completely fucking stupid, that's like a petulant little child going like, you can't stop me now, Dad. Fucking, I'll do this thing now and you can't stop me. It's key jangling. I hate key jangling. I mean, sometimes I like key jangling, but most of the time I fucking hate key jangling, man. Especially when it's like ruining a potentially pretty cool concept. I hate it. It sucks. And even if you ignore the fact that this is completely cringe and sucks ass, which it does, and I'm not ignoring that. However, if you do ignore that, this introduces the same timeline problem that was introduced in the first movie. Because the guy that's supposed to be Heath Ledger Joker, he's like 25 minimum. Minimum. Maybe 30. Like, so you have this guy, you have Heath Ledger Joker, and then it's only like 2 years after the first movie. So Bruce Wayne is still a little baby boy. So you're going to tell me that in The Dark Knight, the Joker's like 50? No. Don't like that, son. That sucks. You shouldn't have done that. Because it's really annoying and sucks ass. God. What a dog shit movie. The last thing I want to talk about, and here's where the content warning comes in, is this movie's perspective on sex. This is probably where I have the most problems with the movie. I know I've talked a shit ton about how many problems I have with this movie, But this is where it gets like serious. Joker Folie à Deux or Joker 2 or Joker Fallout Boy's best album, however you want to put it, has just such a frat boy view of sex and how it relates to masculinity. And to get what I mean, there are two pivotal moments in Arthur's journey in this movie that are centered directly around a sexual encounter. The first one being when he and Harley have sex, and then he is more emboldened to be the Joker more. He's like being more cocky, kisses his lawyer on the mouth, which is weird. He has more outbursts in court than he probably would have before. He's basically content with just bombing any chance he has of getting transferred from Arkham to an actual mental institute. And he didn't seem that invested in that anyway, but regardless, there's a very clear change in his character that comes after he has sex. And then he's like that up until a point. And if you've read spoilers or you have seen the movie, you know where I'm going with this. I mentioned earlier that he stops being the Joker. And the reason why is because after he swings his dick around a little too much, gets a little cocky, like he takes the prison warden's seat on the bench or whatever and like badmouths him on TV at the courtroom or something, Brendan Gleeson rapes him. He gets fucking prison raped. And that is what causes him to not be the Joker anymore. He has like a complete personality change. He's like just defeated. He's deflated. He's like, I don't want to be the Joker anymore. I just want to be Arthur. And then Harley breaks up with him, and that directly leads to him getting stabbed to death in prison. Now, there's a lot wrong with this, a lot that I don't like. First of all, completely came out of nowhere. Just like absolutely unwarranted. Movie did not seem like it had the capability nor the cojones to even consider talking about rape. And then there's just an implied rape scene. Crazy. Absolutely out of nowhere. Now, first problem I have with this, Todd, you fucking idiot. You did it again. You gave us another reason to be sympathetic for the Joker. Now, most of this movie is just shitting on the Joker, like making this guy out to be just like the lamest guy of all time. Like, this guy is a big fucking loser. That's what Joker 2 wants you to feel about the character of the Joker. It would make a lot more sense for that plot line or that theme to be wrapped up by the Joker kind of doing this to himself. Like, if he got a little too bold with it, or like there was a younger guy who was like, I'm the Joker actually, and Arthur was like, fuck you, idiot, and then like they fight or whatever, and he dies about it. It would have sucked anyway because Todd Phillips directed this movie, but it would have been something. Instead, what am I going to do? Am I going to not feel bad for the rape victim? Are you stupid? But beyond that, this illuminates the aforementioned frat boy's view of how sexuality relates to masculinity. The Joker, when he first has sex, he becomes more of a man, you know? He becomes the Joker, this idealized vessel of masculine pain and like society and all that. Like, even if it's not really explicitly said in the movie, that's like that's what the Joker has become. He's become this idol for all these incel weirdos to project their fantasies about killing those who have done them wrong, or just even speaking up for once in their lives. Once he has sex, he just fully commits to that. And the thing that breaks him down is an act of sexual violence against him. That emasculates him. That like takes all the wind out of his sails. He's not the Joker anymore. He's not a man anymore. And I have a big problem with that. I think that's terrible. He reverts back to the meek, pitiful guy we saw in the first movie. Now, this is not to invalidate a real world sexual assault victim's potential personality change. People process trauma differently, you know? It is not at all uncommon for somebody to go through a traumatic event like that and essentially become a different person. It's a coping mechanism. It's just how it works. However, this is not real life, and Todd Phillips is not equipped to tackle something that needs this amount of nuance with any grace. In media, sexual violence against men has been used many times to basically make them not be men anymore, to make them weaker, to kill their spirit, etc. And while there are definitely examples of this being used well and of male sexual assault survivors being portrayed with the finesse and the sensitivity that that kind of thing needs, this movie is not equipped for that. It ties the Joker's masculinity and comfortability with himself to his sexuality. Those two things are inextricable from each other. He's a man when he gets laid, and he's a weak loser when he gets raped. And that doesn't sit right with me at all. For one, again, comes out of nowhere. Todd Phillips is ill-equipped to handle that kind of thing. But also because being a real man, whatever that entails, is not tied to sex. You don't have to have sex to be a real man. You don't have to get raped to not be a man. You can survive sexual violence and still be a man. It's a pretty reductive and disgusting view of masculinity, especially in current year. It feels backwards, especially for this kind of movie that's trying to make a grand comment about things or whatever. Or I guess not anymore, at least the first one was. This movie doesn't even really attempt to make a comment on masculinity or whatever. It's too preoccupied with punching everyone who idolizes the Joker directly in the face. And again, they probably deserve it. However, you can't put a rape scene in your movie if you're going to do that, because you need a lot comes with that. You have to talk about that a little more. And it conflicts with itself too. The whole movie is preoccupied with shitting on Arthur Fleck. Like, he only lasts like 15 seconds with Harley. And like, I don't know if that's meant to be like funny or not, but it's very clearly meant to further illuminate how pitiful and pathetic Todd Phillips thinks that the Joker is. It's kind of communicating two like equally weird messages. Oh, this guy that you've idolized is a loser because he's never had sex before. And this guy is also weak because he got raped. Now, I'm not going to speculate on whether or not this was Todd Phillips' intent. I don't like the guy's work, but I don't know anything about the guy. I don't know if he's chill or not. I don't know what his views on sexuality and masculinity are. I don't know any of that. I'm not going to make it seem like his intention was to make Arthur look like a loser because he is inexperienced sexually and because he's a victim. That's not what I'm trying to say. However, I am trying to say that it comes off like that. The movie makes it seem like that is the case. And if I were to attribute all that to Phillips, I would be assigning the credit to him and saying that something that he intended to go off went off exactly how he wanted it to, which, if I've learned anything from these movies, that's just not how this guy works. He's not very good at executing what he has in mind when it comes to these Joker movies. Just like the rest of this movie, that aspect is underdone. It's not thought through at all. It is presented the way it is in this movie due to either a lack of consideration or a lack of skill, or both. Don't waste your money on this movie. Go watch Transformers 1. If I have to say it again, 2 out of 10. Go watch Transformers. Fuck you.